Okay, this is still Module 1, Week 1, and yeah, the second video. This is we're going over Chapter 2 of the recommended readings, and obviously for you, this might be a different day, but of course you can tell by my shirt that it's still same day for me. All right, so we're going to talk about prior knowledge. That is before knowledge, knowledge that you acquired before encountering something different. So anything in your life up until this moment is prior knowledge. And then tomorrow, this video will become prior knowledge to you. It doesn't matter if you remember it or not. You were exposed to it, it will influence you. It might change you in some way. You may not even remember why you changed your opinion on certain things, but there it is, right? So prior knowledge, all information that you had acquired before encountering something new. Now, why is that important? Because we are prejudiced in favor of our prior knowledge. Information that we were given first generally has an advantage over new information. So I could be speaking absolute truth to you, but if it's inconvenient to you, if it forces you to have to learn again, start all over, then the tendency is, the bias is to reject it. Okay, so prior knowledge, in order to defeat or basically convince you that your prior knowledge is not as good as new knowledge, it requires persuasion. Okay, and you can't do a shortcut and say, I can just force them. You can't do that. Believe me, because people don't like to be coerced. Imagine if I forced you to dress a certain way, to act a certain way, to watch this video at a certain time every day. No matter what your schedule is, no matter what your personal preference is, a lot of people would push back. A lot of people would be very upset. And that's life. I don't know if any of you grew up and your parents would always say, did you do your homework? My parents were obsessive. I have Asian parents, all right? And all they would do is ask me if I study, am I still studying? Have I studied for next year's material? All that kind of stuff, which always turned me off every time they would ask me if I did my homework. And I said, well, I was thinking about doing it, but I'm not doing it now. So even the suggestion of coercion is enough for some people, maybe none of you, but always for me. Even if someone even hinted that they were going to try to force me to do something, I would always do something different. I was tough egg that way. So prior knowledge gives people that inclination, the tendency or the desire to want to do something to favor what they already know. Your prior knowledge, often for most people, you remember it because you benefit it from in some way. It helps you. You liked it. Prior knowledge is everything, including your name, who your parents are. And if we were, well, I'll take the luxury of asking you this. A lot of people think they have this person in their life they call mom or mother or amma or whatever. There's a person in their life that they call mom, right? Why do you call that person mom? And most of you would probably say, well, because she's my mom. And I would say, how do you know? And you say, pictures can be doctored now. Documents can be forged. How do you know? And for most of us, before any of you freak out, for most of us, it's true. But there are those times, right? Because they even made that TV show Switched at Birth or something like that, where it does happen. And, I had 4 kids, and every time they were born, you had to get all these bracelets and to make sure that no one walks off with the wrong child. I guess it happens, right? So, or the fear that it would happen. But all we know is what other people told us, right? That's your prior knowledge. How do you know it's true or not? And some of you might be saying, oh, I did my research. Well, my kids are in school and I see the way their teachers tell them what are reliable sources and what are not. Yeah, there's a little bit of narrow-mindedness going on there. So what does count as a legit source and what does not? It's very interesting. But all of that is prior knowledge. You favor it, it benefits you in some way, and so that's why you remember it. Something that everyone needs to understand, especially if you recall the paper, the sculpture that was in the previous video, is that all information basically comes from what we see, what we can observe, what we take in, comes from our perspective, right? So based on where you are, you see red, and then where I'm standing, I'll see light blue. And so where you are in relation to what you're observing is going to determine what you see. So that's a point of view, your perspective, okay? Your perspective will determine what you think is true or not true. Your perspective is not just what you see, it's also your taste and your preference. So from your perspective, country music may not be all that great. But from someone else's perspective, you'll realize that country music is the #1 music genre in the country, which is why there's so many country music award shows out there, you know. Well, maybe not anymore because of Corona, but anyway. And if you haven't figured it out, I'm a very much a lockdown skeptic. And I don't know if any of you are upset that you have to do online learning. I am upset with you. I think this is horrible. I think the fact that all the faculty get to sit at home, make these videos, and then play around for the rest of the week, and yet charge all of you the same tuition, I think is pretty ridiculous. But I'm nobody, and so my opinions don't matter, which takes us to the next topic. There is no truth. There is only opinion. Okay, now think about it. This is a piece of paper, right? And so what you think is the color, right? It's like, oh, I know the fact that it's red. Really? You know it's red all the time to everyone? What about to someone who's colorblind? To someone who's colorblind, maybe the color redness doesn't matter. Rather, it's the shape that matters. Maybe it's a diamond, maybe it's a rectangle with a rhombus, whatever. So all of these different things come into play, that there is no truth, no universal truth that is true to everyone. There is just opinion, strongly held opinions. And look, this is not the first class that I'm saying this. And so yes, through most of my teaching career, students have tried to come up with facts, an absolute. But you have to understand that it doesn't hold water. I do this all the time. People, last semester, someone said, what about a second? A second is a second to everybody. No, not really. Einstein showed through the theory of relativity that if you change the speed at which you are traveling, time also changes, right? So a person may perceive a second in the same way, but outside observers will see things slow down or speed up, right? So time is not even absolute. Measurement is not absolute, etc., etc. So there are only opinions. There are no facts. Now, some of you might be losing your poop right now because you've always used facts like a trump card. Yeah, the trump card. You throw that card down and you say, my facts are better than your facts. You must surrender to my argument, which I don't have. I just have a bunch of facts that I use to silence people in my argument. And that's how people are using facts. So facts are basically the lazy man's way of ending an argument, right? So you're not going to use any kind of principle, any kind of logic. You're just going to throw around information that you heard on the internet, maybe on social media, and you say, my social media friends said this fact, and so therefore it's true. Yeah, maybe, right? Religious people have tried to do this all the time. Scientists have tried to do this all the time, and every single time they've tried to make it absolutely true, they have been proven that they're just simply being subjective. Okay, and I know some of you are probably screaming at the video right now or contemplating dropping the class, but think about it. If what you know is just simply what you know because of your perspective, then any information that you generate from that perspective is just simply your opinion. Saying it that way acknowledges that there could be other perspectives which see and understand things in a completely different way. That's all we're saying. So once you leave this video or this class, you can have your facts back, right? Have your conversations the way you had before, shut down those conversations, right? Kick people out if you want, right? You can do that. But in this class, there are no facts. All there are opinions. Oh, that's your opinion. This is my opinion. Okay. Um, so a lot of people will say that science gives us facts, right? I mean, you just look at all this corona propaganda and realize that I don't think people understand what science actually is. Science is constantly questioning and challenging information that already exists to see if it actually is legit. And so for people throwing around, just listen to the science. Well, I listen to the science. I look at Florida. I look at how Florida has pretty much no restrictions, people going in and out of that state constantly, and their corona cases and mortality rates are better than New York, which has all these lockdown measures and killing their state. uh, all the businesses left, and now there's a multi-billion-dollar shortfall in the city budget. And so what they're going to do is they're going to raise the taxes. Anyone else who's left in that city, they're going to leave now, which is going to make things even worse. So it's kind of interesting. Also, you'd be surprised, or maybe not surprised, to know that the United States is pretty much the only country that has shut down all of its schools, right? It's been shown scientifically that children don't really, especially elementary school kids, they don't carry corona. And so you can't get it from little kids, apparently. Uh, so just have the schools open, but not in America. It's very interesting. I don't know if you even know this, but maybe some of you have friends or family, but a lot of the private schools in the United States are still open. I mean, just ask Governor of California Newsom's kids. They go to private school, right? Because they didn't want to learn online. So political and privileged people, they get to go to private schools, really expensive private schools, while the rest of the population of America are deprived of face-to-face education. Go science, right? So a lot of it, so if you actually do listen to the science, there's a lot of disagreement. There is no consensus. There's no uniform uh, conclusion by anyone. And on the vocab sheet, what I'll do is I'll post a couple links that a big story that broke not too long ago. But in certain scientific fields, it turns out that a lot of the information there, the scientific studies that they conduct, are fake, right? So the government gives all this money to lots of people to do certain research, and they fudge their data, right? So someone else comes along and says, oh, let's check on this data, and they find out that it's not repeatable. And in some fields, I believe, if my memory serves, like up to 80% of the scientific studies are fake. But no one cares because it's a scientific study, right? It's science. And as long as that science is validating or supporting your opinion, you're going to say it's the truth. And so science, which basically doesn't support your idea, that's not science, that's fake science, like, what is that? What is that? Fake fact, alternate facts. What's that expression? Uh, different facts, something like that. The whole Trump thing where people were like saying, oh, alternate facts or something. Look, anyone who's been in a serious relationship with someone and you get into a really bad, nasty fight with each other, right? And then you bring in an unwitting friend and you say, oh, can you believe what that person did to me? Can you believe what that person said to me? And you hear the whole thing and you're like, oh, wow, that's pretty horrible. And then the next day, because you're friends with both of them, right? And and then the next day, the other person in the relationship brings you aside and they say, oh, can you believe what that person did to me? Can you believe what they said to me? Then they did that. Can you believe it? And you're like, wow. Both people talking about the same incident or series of events, completely different interpretation. Yet both of them will say, this is the fact, this is the truth, right? So yeah, there's alternate truths, there are alternate facts all of the time, depending on your perspective. And to simplify, can you believe that person was red? that person was light blue, right? So it's kind of true, but not absolutely true. So what we're saying is you choose what you want to believe. You choose your facts. You choose your truth. So there is no truth, there's just opinion, right? And so what you have decided to believe, and then there's everything else. So to me, what's not interesting is what students believe, right? You say, well, Dr. Kim, I believe this. Heard that already. Every single semester since I started teaching at Temple in 1997, right? Heard it already numerous times, right? Tell me something new. Tell me something different. Right? So what students believe, not very interesting. You might think it's new. You might think it's kind of like off the hook, kind of interesting. You might. That's because you don't really learn a lot. You're just learning all that prepackaged socialized information, right? And so what students believe, not really interested in it, right? But more interesting is, why do you still believe it, right? That is so much more interesting, right? If you say, well, I believe that solar energy is the future of energy, boring. But the real question is, why do you still believe that to be true? Right? Why? What's the motivation? What do you get from it? Does it make you feel good? Does it make you think like you are smarter than everybody else? Like, why do you continue to maintain positions which are probably not true? That is far more interesting, right? So why are Jesus freaks? Jesus freaks. It's not what they believe. Most people are totally uninterested in knowing why they believe in God or believe in Jesus or whatever, believe in the religion that they have. No one's interested. But the real question that all of us can kind of plug into is, why do you still believe that? Right? To me, that's far more interesting. You can have a discussion with anybody, people you disagree with, but then you get to dig a little bit deeper. You go beyond the superficial. It's not about, oh, I'm going to get angry because you said something, right? I don't know. I used to be an angry Asian guy, right? So everything, I was angry about everything. Anyone could say anything and I could tell you how racist it was, right? And so I would get, my level of anger depended on how racist you were. I was like, oh, that's low level racism. And I would call people, I'd tell people, oh, that's a little bit racist. That's really racist. Depending on how racist it was, I was going to like change my emotional reaction. I played that game and it's tiring. You are so exhausted. You have no friends anymore. No one wants to talk to you. It's horrible, right? So I peaked too early. Right? If I was doing it now, I'd be like Mr. Super Popular, right? I'd probably get tenure somewhere. But I did it in a time where a lot of people were like, really? I don't know. But being angry all of the time was exhausting. And I was like, man, there's got to be something else. And there is, and that's to get out of the box, right? So it's not what, it's why. Why do you believe what you believe? There's some benefit, there's some reward for you. That's why you continue to believe it. Now, the last thing in this chapter that I wanted to talk about was politics. Now, a lot of people think that politics means being active in government or trying to go for election or whatever. No. Anytime you try to persuade someone to agree with you, you are engaging in politics. You're like, well, I already knew that. No, no. What should we eat for dinner tonight? Should it be pizza or salad? And if someone says, oh, let's have salad, and you say, no, 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 let's have pizza. And so you're going to try to persuade that person to agree with you. As soon as you persuade someone, try to persuade someone about anything, uh, agree not to tell the teacher something, agree not to tell your parents something, agree to tell people something, you are engaging in politics. At the family dinner table, when your parents say no politics or religion at the dinner table, that's politics, right? Understand that everything is political. If you change your perspective, everything essentially becomes political. This video is an extremely political video because I'm trying to get you to see things in a certain way, but not the only reason why this kind of politics is not so bad is I'm trying to persuade you to see more, not less, not to see things in a particular way, but to try to see more. And as long as you're trying to get people to see more, to understand more, to learn more, to grow more, that kind of politics, that kind of education is, I think, favorable. It's better because the choice always is with you. The choice that needs to be made always resides with the individual. All right. And this is what's really important to me as well. A teacher is not supposed to tell you the choices that you're supposed to make in life. Oh, this summer, if you got time, you should go on some kind of uh, trip to overseas to help poor people. That's the only way that you would have a meaningful life. Well, maybe, but what if you're really, really poor and you need to work all summer to be able to help pay for your college tuition? What if you're that person? So does that mean you're less of a person because you got to work and all these other people can afford not to? And so to me, there is no moral value in this or that choice, only that you make the choice that works best for you. That's the only morality I think that I would abide by in this class anyway, right? So the effort to persuade is politics. I'm trying to convince you to agree with me, right? But in this class, again, the politics that I engage in is to try to convince you, persuade you. There's a lot of banging going on downstairs. It makes me think someone's really angry. Hopefully not at me. But anyway, so to persuade people to learn more, to consider more. But at the end of the day, the choice that you want to make is your choice. And whatever choice you want to make, I support you, right? Because it's not going to affect me, right? Because as long as I get to make the choices I want to make for myself, you should have all of the right and freedom to make the choices for yourself. In other words, my teaching is designed to help the smallest minority in the United States. And the smallest minority in the United States is the minority of the individual. You can't get smaller than that. So if your rights and your freedom as an individual is protected, everything else takes care of itself, right? You can hang out with whoever you want. You can talk to whoever you want about anything you want. You can sleep with whomever you want. You can work in any industry that you want. It's totally up to you because it's your choice. But if you do have that choice, you make those choices, then the responsibility is all yours. You can't make a choice with the freedom that you have and then complain afterwards. You can't say, well, this is not the way I imagined it to be. You should have thought about it a little bit better before you made the choice. And if the people who are giving you advice, the people who are trying to give you that information before you made that choice, they turn out to be unreliable, you got to find better sources. Okay. So understand that we're free to make these choices to protect ourselves, to try to live life that is best for ourselves as best as possible. Everything else, as long as we preserve that ability and that right, then everything else pretty much takes care of itself, right? And so the goal is for you to be happy, so happy in your own personal life that and making sure that everyone else is just as happy, that there's really very little to complain about. These days, it's all about, oh, what can I narc on that person for, right? Even last semester, I had a student narc on me for doing something which turned out the university, certain departments of the university adopted as their policy, which is kind of interesting to me. I don't tell anyone, but students who are so eager to try to get other people in trouble because maybe they're unhappy, maybe they're too afraid, they have to make other people's lives miserable too. But you shouldn't live that way. Well, there's a better way to live, I think, and that is focusing on doing the things that make you happy, right? And as the happier you are, right, the more you have a gusto for life, the people around you will benefit as well. Anyway, so that's that prior knowledge and perspective. So what's the perspective you're stuck on? Is that the only perspective? Is that the only way you can see things? Is there something else? Okay, so I'll see you in the next video.